Good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
I'm saying that because we're talking the day after the day. What a day it was.
Holy smokes, it really was. We were just saying a minute ago before we hit record that our throats are both a little rough from 10 hours of talking to dozens and dozens of friends that go back decades and decades. It's just a epic day. I mean, even in anticipation of looking at that bill and a unique venue and the nature of the event with the Dogmatics putting out their first record in so long, like you couldn't have predicted the energy in that room. That was really special.
Yeah, I should have probably said something so people would know. The Dogmatics had their shindig yesterday with Rumbar Records. And you know what? I before we talk about this fantastic new EP, 5x54, can't wait to ask you about that title.
Absolutely.
Uh, I want to do a review of the show, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to do it with you.
I'm in.
It's so great to talk about a show like the one we were at with someone else. I saw every single band that played. Yes, I can't say I saw every minute of every
Of
set,
course.
but let's talk about this each performer because I think that everyone deserves credit about
100%.
yesterday. Give me your thoughts, man. Like first the show opened with Black Cheers. And I know there was an O'Halloran up there, right?
Yeah, Danny, I believe on the drums. Yeah, that was like my walk-in music, if you will. As you know, I live on the Cape. I'm down in Sandwich, so a little bit of a ride, but I was trying to get there to catch everything I could. So
Did you miss the first set? Because Danny actually played guitar instead of drum. He is a drummer, but
yeah,
Julie Chrysler, who I used to work with at Enigma, and we hadn't seen each other in 35 years. There's gonna be a lot of that in this conversation. She didn't recognize. I said, "Isn't there an O'Halloran in this band?" And she goes, "No." And then all of a sudden, she's like, "Wait, he's on guitar and he's a drummer."
yeah. So their set,
Mm.
I walked in as they were finishing the last song, but I heard most of it because, to our point at the beginning of the conversation, I park. Like this actually captures the spirit of the event. I drive by a few people, I wave to them in the parking lot, and then I can't find a spot. So I'm like 10 minutes away, heading towards, Auburndale at this point. And I come walking up, and so like the tone gets set with a few good souls are like, "Hey Chris, park over there at Woolly Mammoth, you'll be fine. You're probably 10 minutes away." I'm like, the benevolence is already ringing through the air. So I was outside talking to a few friends and listening to Black Cheer. So I walked in and heard or saw kind of them wrapping up, but they sounded killer.
That happened a lot, by the way, because there were a lot of people outside and a lot of people inside. The whole time it was like, and I had no idea that Woolly Mammoth was right across the street from the venue because I think I got the last parking place. I had Tom Wilson with me who got recruited to do
Right.
all the stage work.
Doing what he does better than
Yeah,
anybody in the world, running a
he
stage.
he was great yesterday. Jay Allen and the Arch Criminals came on second. Jay's very consistent with his music and songs.
Absolutely. I love his songwriting. Jay's awesome guy. I love his voice. He almost sounds like a lost O'Halloran in some ways with his delivery.
Yeah,
But his band is killer and it's great, and they're always fun to see.
like you and many of the people we're going to talk about, he's fully entrenched in the Rumbar Records
100%.
movement. I'm going to call it a movement.
You know what Lou would call it? A family. He really fosters that, like, we're all connected, we support each other. He'll often use the term the Rumbar family, and yeah, it's completely appropriate.
I actually feel like I'm part of that family
You
too.
are
So,
totally, but that's
yeah.
exactly the spirit of it. It's not just the bands. It's like the Rumbar family, in my mind, is this community of music enthusiasts. Some of us play, some of us host amazing podcasts, some of us do the artwork, some of us record it. Engineers. Like there's just this collective where
It's the new
there's
way, man. The
is
new
there's
way.
this to it. You know what I mean? And it kind of reminds me of a spirit that used to be in the city that maybe hasn't been so much anymore. There's touch points along the way with this scene and that scene, but it's because even if you look at the Rumbar catalog, not to go too far off the uh, topic with the reviews, but there's a lot of dynamics to the Rumbar catalog. When you look at Jay Allen and the Arch Criminals versus Stop Calling Me Frank versus Peppermint Kicks versus Amplifier Heads versus Dogmatics and Gypsy Moths. And there's just a lot of different ingredients in that stew.
It's a great reinvention of an independent label, like one of the best ones going. A lot of LA people have ended up on Rumbar Records too, which is really good. And New Yorkers.
Yeah, he's done a real skillful job of growing the label, particularly in the last year or two, with out of town artists that tour and have a meaningful catalog, and I think that's awesome. But yet it still has that like Boston spirit to it.
Yeah, absolutely. What happened after Jay Allen and before the Gypsy Moss, Last Stand, okay? Like, I don't know if they've done a reunion show, but they are an 80s band, man. And man, were they good.
They were
They,
killer. They were killer. I'm gonna stop saying killer. I've said killer about every band, but they were just
it was a
unbelievable.
killer day, dude.
So I just found out, and shame on me for not having the radar out to hear this, but I was talking to a friend last week saying the very same thing. Like, I haven't seen Last Stand since 1991. I don't think they've played since then. And they told me that Last Stand actually reunited for a couple of shows. I'm going to say like 2002 or three, and released a 5-song EP.
They did?
Yeah, it's on, all the streaming services. So I went and listened to it over the last week, and some great songs there. That I completely missed out on that.
Me too.
But that was a special one for me, man. They were right up there with any other band that I loved back then. I'll tell you how much I loved Last Stand at that time. That I had a classmate in high school, his friend that did like painting on the back of jean jackets. He'd give him $50. He was a great
I
artist.
love that.
He do like punk rock painting on the
Yeah.
back, specifically jean jackets versus leathers. I had a Last Stand jacket in high school.
Is it gone?
I loaned it to I hadn't seen the artist guy in ages. And this goes back like 20, maybe even longer than maybe like 25 plus years ago. I saw him, I loaned it to him, and he never loaned it back.
You just reminded me of my Bullet LaVolta homemade jacket. Well, I didn't make it, but someone sewed the cover of the EP on the back of my jean jacket. But
Yeah.
someone else has that jacket now, and I got to figure out how to get that back from her. Maybe she's listening and she'll get it back to me because she's not wearing it, I don't think. It's classic. There are only three of them, and it's like just, you probably worked on that EP.
On Last Stand.
No, the Bullet LaVolta EP
Oh
from the
yeah.
jacket
So
I have.
yeah, so I came into I came aboard on Tang shortly after the EP was released, but I was there for
The gift.
Gift. But there's and I go off topic a lot, but there's we've talked before in our conversations about Metrowave, and I had the good fortune of being the final host of Metrowave on ERS, and the Phoenix did an article about it that was basically taking real hit at ERS management for getting rid of such an institution. And they came down. I had to sort of sneak the photographer into the station, and they took a photo of me with the records behind me in the ERS library, and I'm wearing a T-shirt. I'll send it to you. I still have the picture. The T-shirt is the Bullet LaVolta first EP.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I had the t-shirt, but it became the jacket.
I was 19 years old.
Wow. We're going to talk about Curtis because he was there, but we'll get to that in a minute. But first, I have to tell you something very funny that happened right before you and the Gypsy Moths took the stage. I was talking to Lou, and I'm like, Lou and Michael Murata, talking to both of them. I'm like, somebody mentioned Mercy Beat in the press release or whatever. We got to really work that angle, the Mercy Beat angle, because that's what this band kind of represents. And so Lou goes on stage, and what does he do? He steals my line and introduces you guys and says something about Mercy Beat. And then he looked at me and winked. It was really a funny moment.
There you go, Steve. There's the Rumbar family. That's like the equivalent of like we're at the family dinner and Uncle Steve says something, and then Cousin Lou goes out and tells that joke again out back afterwards.
Yeah, yeah, and it's gonna get attached to your band now, I think, because
Well,
Lou is like, and it's true though. You guys do sound like that, and last night was a perfect example of that. You guys were great. I just felt bad that you had to go on after Last Stand because it was like going from this fast punk rock to like beautiful Jerry and the Pacemakers. It's like what
I
just
love it.
happened?
That it's well, it was intimidating to be going on after Last Stand on a personal level, given the history I just told you of my love of the band and how anticipated that reunion was. But honestly, I feel like we hit the lottery ticket with our slot because you've got Last Stand right before us, and I love that. My favorite thing going to a show, never mind playing a show, is when you've got all sorts of flavors in there, and it's not just the same thing. So having Last Stand before us, then our set, and then Tom Baker afterwards.
Baker.
Probably my favorite songwriter in Boston, and just he's such a treasure. He's such an awesome musician. His lyrics, his songs are magical. He's a wonderful human as well. But to land between those two, we could never play another gig again, and I'd be happy.
Baker probably, if you think about it, I'm pretty sure I heard that Justine Covalt, the late Justine Covalt, was the one, her and Dave Minahan figured out that they could use that American Legion Hall.
Yeah,
So Baker must have played a role in that. I can see this hall becoming a regular thing. And Lou talked to me about doing a show together there. And
awesome.
with I'd love to have a Blowing Smoke rum bar show. With all rum bar bands, but it would be sponsored by Blowing Smoke. So we're talking about that right now. It's good.
Yeah,
But your set was cool. How did you feel about your set?
I loved it. It was fun. It was such a treat to be up there, with those bands and at that day and all that. And then further, we had just put out a brand new EP the day before, something that we're,
Great timing.
yeah, totally. And we had it in the bank for a little bit, and with a little bit, I say this jokingly, but with a little bit of a nod to the way that the Beatles and the Stones would stagger their releases to not compete with each other. Originally, we were going to put our EP out a few weeks ago, and then it became the Dogmatics record release day. I'm like, we're bumping ours so we go the next week, but it was so special. It's the day after our new record that we're more into what we're doing than ever. We've evolved in our lineup pretty significantly over the last, and we can get into the stuff later,
We're
but in the
definitely going to get into all of
year
that.
or so. So it
Yeah.
was a unique scenario for us in terms of like our original keyboard player. He's been back in the band for a year now, but he's up there with us. And we don't gig out as much. So even though he's been back in the band in a year and we're recording all sorts of music, we've only got a couple of gigs in the books with him. And then we were sad about this, but our bass player, Phil Thompson, had a pre-planned vacation quite some time ago to go to Portugal. And him and his wife were traveling. And I happened to be at Ed's Barn, where we do all our recordings, where many of the rum bar bands record, with legendary engineer and Band 19, plus many other bands, bassist Ed Reamer. And I happened to be at Ed's doing a mix on some of the stuff on the EP, and Jerry had invited us to do the show. And I'm like, oh, shucks, Phil's out of town. And before I even get a chance to ask him, Ed being such an awesome partner of the band, he's like, I'll do it.
He filled in nicely.
Yeah, he was great. And so that made it special too. We missed Phil, but it was a once in a lifetime opportunity to share a stage with Ed. So
He held down the low end
yeah,
quite well. He's a legend, though. We'll talk about him later. We're going to get onto him because he helped you record your record. You recorded your record. We'll talk about that. We touched on Baker, and you took a line right out of my mouth because Tom Baker's one of my favorite songs. He played Out of Focus too, which is one of my very favorite songs that he's written. And I didn't see that lineup before. It was really interesting with the lefty guitar player.
yeah, totally. Same here. And he's got moving parts and pieces to his stuff. And I know the Double Down's consistent, and they do their residency at the Plow and Star. So, I'm remiss in getting up there for everyone, partially about my geolocation these days and all that. But so if that lineup has played consistently, I'm not sure. But another real, secret weapon he has is Paul Delmonico on the drums. Del's been with him for a bit. Del's also in a band called the Haymakers, but he is such a groove drummer. He's an amazing harmony background vocal.
Good background vocals.
He's
Yeah.
the lead vocalist for his band, so he's a
Yeah.
great singer. So they were in the moment, man. You could see them just kind of really rising and having a set.
There was at least two or three songs that I was transfixed on the left side of the stage. John Sheeran on bass. Whew.
Yeah, he's unbelievable.
Wow.
Totally. I actually there was a Baker show. I can't remember, a couple years ago, and after they got off stage, I said to Tom, I'm like, I have a hard time focusing on the songs because I'm watching him play in the bass.
He's
I could just have the bass cam with his stuff. So he's unbelievable. Yeah, Tom's band is just stacked
Yeah,
with great.
he has a really important role in the family township as well, you know. I mean, he's really a good bass player. Um, then we had Stop Calling Me Frank, which I remember Julie Chrysler running over to me and going, "These guys are great. Who are they?" And they knew. I'm like, I think they've been around for like 40 years
Oh yeah,
and a
totally.
half. So
They just saw
they did a really good job of like bringing things right back up again. Tom kind of like mellowed it out a little with the great. Then they brought it back up, and then the time came for the Dogmatics, and man, did they deliver!
they were unbelievable. I just want to get back to Stop Calling Me Frank for one
Sure.
moment. I love that band. They're awesome guys. They have been around for like 40 years. They're kind of a brother band to us of like folks that have been around forever and just stacked with good people. Their songs are awesome. I was particularly excited last night because they've got a newer song that I think is coming out as a single soon called Market Basket. And they
They
played it
ended
last.
this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's such an awesome song. So they were fantastic. But you're absolutely right. Dogmatics. I mean, I could, we're in the moment. We're like 12 plus hours away from the show, but I'd feel confident right now.
Barely.
Right, exactly. But I can say with confidence that that could easily have been one of the best dogmatic sets I've ever seen.
It's always good when they bring the third O'Halloran on stage
Johnny,
with them. He brings so much to it. But
oh,
you know, yesterday to me was kind of like a James Young day. I spent a lot of time teasing him all day. And when they were on stage and get ready to play in front of the other guys, and I said it loud enough, I said, James, you promised me that I Love Rock and Roll was going to be on the list. It's not on the list. And the other guys looked at me and laughed. And James like, I never promised that.
that's hilarious.
It's
Yeah,
pretty
James
funny.
James brings a great dynamic to the band. The other, I used the term secret weapon earlier about Baker's band. The Dogmatics, I mean, Johnny O'Halloran coming in when he sits in, it adds a whole new dynamic. But the Dogmatic secret weapon yesterday was John Getchus, JG on the piano. That
Oh
guy is
yeah.
he's a wizard. He's just the guys, and he's always been great. The first time I saw the Dogmatics back in '85, it probably was. JG was there. He was played live with them frequently then and played on the records. And then, such a legendary career since then as a professional musician, played in the Bosstones for years, Cherry Poppin' Daddies. So I was very anxious and eager and excited to see him in that band again. And
Yeah.
he just, he what a knockout having that element in the band, just that piano and the way he plays and his talent and his connection to those songs. He played on, playing, Saturday Night Again, and he rips off that solo. And I'm like, he had recorded that solo back 41 years ago or whatever. So that was magic.
And if I can say this, a very statuesque, handsome man, you know,
Oh yeah.
you see sticks out in the crowd. I
Oh yeah.
saw him in the parking lot, like I never met the guy, and I was like, who's that dude? And then I realized who he was. He kind of sticks out. You know, he's got that look. Good
He's got,
piano player,
yeah.
keyboard player.
He's got something about him, man. The guy's special. Great dude. I don't know him very well, but it was nice. I hadn't seen him in many years. We have a close mutual friend, um, which is the guy that introduced us in our connection. So it was a treat to see him personally, and then to see him do his thing up there.
And then they pulled out, you know, one of the biggest legends in Boston rock history to close the night. You know, and let me tell you, it was so good seeing Fritz Erickson up there with Band 19. Fritz is
Forget it.
so good,
The best,
lefty.
the best. I mean, his guitar playing he's a shredder, but like that almost is a misnomer because shredders sometimes means overdoing it. He reminds me a lot of Angus in some ways, but he's just such a unique player that can play with this fluidity, but he's just so melodic. It's perfect for that band. Like those four pieces, because Mike Collins is one of the
Yeah,
most amazing drummers ever.
yeah.
from Boston.
Could still play, still could. They all were great last
Some
night. The
game
whole band was.
Ed is unbelievable. And then, of course, the captain of the ship, Rich Parsons, up there doing it like nobody does it. And that band is so unique. When you look at Richie's trajectory from Unnatural Acts to the solo records he's recorded over the last few years, whether it be like the melodic stuff that he's done or the punk EP that he put out on Rumbar last year, he's got so much dynamics to the band and to the bands he's had over the years. And Band 19, much to do with those three other members, have a unique sound. Yeah, they were unbelievable. You could make a case that they stole the show, even though there wasn't a lot to steal because everybody brought something, and it's with full due respect to everybody. But talk about going out with like a fireworks show at the end of the night. That was fantastic.
Absolutely. And it's really funny. I'm a big fan of Richie's and all his projects, but Tomato Monkey and the song Come On is my favorite Richie Parsons song. I don't know why. You mentioned you mentioned about Fritz being a shredder, and if you tell someone that he was in Gangrene when they went through their metal years, you'd be like, that guy? It was that guy.
Oh yeah, totally. He was
Joe Gittleman on bass.
right. Yeah, that was an interesting lineup of Gangrene. A great lineup, actually.
Brian, I think, was the drummer during that period, right?
Brian was, yeah. It was after the Stilphens left. Joe, I think Joe was their roadie, so Joe became the bass player. Then Fritz came into the mix. Joe left to reform the Boss Tones, and that's when Josh from DRI, I think, came in. I don't know how long Fritz and Josh were in the band together, and then before Band 19, Fritz was the guitarist in one of Richie's other bands, the Future
Future
Dads.
Dads. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're on I think one of those Wicked Good Time
yeah.
compilations.
Lee Harrington on bass in that band too.
We love Lee. Lee wasn't there yesterday. I was like, "Where's Lee?" I didn't see him, but
I didn't either. He may
I'm
have been.
sure he had a good reason not to be there. Okay, so I'm glad you did this with me, but what about one more thing?
Of
What about
course.
the star-studded industry people that were at the show? Because I was like looking around, and there's all these old record company people that I knew, Julie and Curtis, and it was like you worked for Tang, and it just had a great vibe, Joni Lindstrom, it was a really cool gather. I mean, I'm not going to say most because there's a lot of people in the Boston music scene. A lot of people in the Boston music scene were there. And it was made, Sean McNally, it made it really even better, I thought.
100%. That was the energy in the room. Was that like there was, you had all these superstars on stage, and then all these superstars walking around out in the crowd, superstars of all stripes and histories and all that. Some of the names you just throw. It's always great to see Sean McNally. He's an amazing guy. What a treat to see Joni. I don't see her often enough, and I love her, and she's great. Um, and Julie, I met Julie for the first time right before we went on stage. Curtis introduced me to her. So we're getting ready to play. It's
WERS alumni. You got all three of you.
I played in a band in the early 90s called Mono Jack. We're together for a couple of years. Steev, our singer, was in the band as well, and our drummer Matt. So a couple of us have been,
That's cool.
yeah. And anyway, it was we played for a couple of years, but we played a gig at the Rat. Our very first gig actually was at the Rat, and Curtis showed up for it, and we covered Dear Prudence that night. Now this is 1994. I had maybe even forgotten about that. And I haven't seen Curtis in forever. And I'm tuning up, getting ready to play. You're up there and like kind of a million things going through your head. And all of a sudden I hear somebody, an unmistakable voice going, "Hey, you guys doing Dear Prudence tonight?" And I turn to him, I'm like, first of all, hello. And secondly, like, how the F do you remember that? And then he starts talking to Julie, and he leans, and he's like, "Fellow ERS." And I was like, introduce myself. And first thing I said to her was, "Your episode with Steev on Blowing Smoke was one of the best ones ever. I wish you had gone on for another
A
3 hours."
lot of people say that,
It
man,
was
because
amazing.
she didn't hold anything back.
Yeah, she was incredible. But it was funny just sitting there with the three of us. I was standing there; they were right there. But three nightclub DJs in the
Oh, I
'80s
needed
that were
that photo.
there.
I don't think I got that I took a lot of photos, but I don't think I got you three together. That would have been a
Julie and
good
I were
one.
talking about recognize, like in the record, and you know this from being a college radio DJ. You'd have your stickers on there. You play the tune that you played, you'd mark the date, and then you'd initial it. And we had a very quick conversation about and I don't know how we got there, but it was about the different signatures of people through the years that had played the records. but so my conversation with her was brief, but it was a treat to meet her. The other thing I said to her was like, I've known your name forever because it was A, I listened to you on the nightclub, but B, your name was on the back of one of my favorite records ever when you managed the Dogmatics as Julie Chrysler.
Yeah. Now, do you know that Julie and I worked together at Enigma Records?
I know it well from the episode,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Duh.
but I didn't know that prior to that. I only knew her as the ERS DJ that was the Dogmatics manager, and she and I, we'd never met and we didn't know each other. So even though I worked in the business for a while, I didn't ever know that she had gone on to what she did. And her name might have been on the back of great Enigma records that I loved, and I just didn't catch it, or
It
maybe
was
her
it
real
was
name.
it was because of the FUs, you know. She was managing them when they became the Straw Dogs, and then
Right.
I did this deal, and then we all started talking, and next thing you know, we recruited her to move to LA, and she did publicity for Restless Records, actually.
You know what's funny? I think I'm an anomaly with this, and the funny thing is I'm not really a big metal guy necessarily. I like all sorts of music, but I love the metal records from the Boston hardcore bands. Like I know you and I've talked about this before. I love Break It Up by SSD.
Yeah,
I love the Gangrene Fritz records. I love the Straw Dogs. I love the hardcore and punk rock iterations of those bands. To me, it still sounded punk rock, but it just had better production and maybe a little bit more skillful play or, metalish developed playing. But I thought that the Straw Dogs records were great.
I think they were all really metalheads. You know what I mean? But you look at DYS. Who would have thought that they would have come out with
Good.
like a hard rock record, you know? And they did, you know?
Yeah, that was another great one. That the second self-titled DYS record.
Well, thank you for doing this whole show thing for me because it's good to talk to someone else that was at a show. Because I usually end up doing a review of a show, but not able to talk to someone that not only was there, but was on stage at one point, you know, and
Absolutely.
it was great. Now, I want to talk about where you're at right now, but I'm going to do something that I don't usually do, but I feel with this record, it's very worth mentioning. I want to mention all the guys in the band. Steve
Great.
O'Brien, beautiful lead vocalist, by the way. Like what a his voice live came across just really good. You play guitar, you on the record, you do background vocals also live and keyboards, percussion. Phil Thompson, who wasn't there last night, great bass player. Matt on drums,
Matt
and
Michelli, yeah,
yeah, and Dave Buckley.
on piano, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, it's a great, solid lineup. And you guys put together this record which I have to talk to you about the title first of all, because I don't get it.
Yeah,
You're probably gonna point it out to me, and I'm gonna go, oh yeah,
no, you wouldn't.
5 by 5 from 4 is the title.
That's the title. So let me just say thank you for your kind words about the band. It's our most kind of cohesive, solid lineup to date. I think it's, excuse me, I think it's the best lineup we've had by a country mile. And it's kind of a return to home in some ways, in that the five of us all have known each other since the early to mid 80s. We've never played in a band together at the same time, but we've been in bands or played in little music projects together. We all went to high school together,
Which high school?
North Quincy High School.
Of course, everyone's from Quincy and Braintree in the Boston
Yeah,
music scene, right?
yeah, and Phil and Steve and I are original members of the band going back to 2014. Matt's been with us for 7 years, but Matt was in a band with Steve and I through in the early 90s, and then Matt and I had another band called Sunshine Boy from the mid 90s till 2002 or so. But Dave was our original keyboard player. He was in the band when we first formed for about a year or so, stepped aside completely amicably, and then, round boomerang, round robin, what have you, back
Yeah.
to a year and a half ago. He joined, or a year ago, he rejoins the band. And it's just, we're all just so connected to it. We actually had this kind of really special moment at a gig we played. We've played at Veterans Memorial Stadium in Quincy for 3 years in a row now. So 3 years ago, it was at the In Between Days Music Festival, which was this huge festival with Modest Mouse and Lord
Yeah,
Huron.
yeah, I'm familiar with it. I haven't been to it yet, but I'm familiar with it.
We kicked off the festival. We were the first band there. It was a total fluke that we got invited. Like they had the festival the year before, and it's presented by a company called Heritage Sports Ventures, and they own this a rugby team. They used to own a professional lacrosse team in Boston, and they also own a professional rugby team that plays at that stadium. And at the time, I lived around the corner from the venue, so you could hear the festival in my backyard the first year. And I was on, and I wanted to just send them a note saying, I think it's so cool that you brought live music in this fashion to Quincy. So I'm on their website. I can't find a contact information. And I put on my sleuthing hat and I find the name of the owner and I find him on LinkedIn. And I send him a note saying, hey, I'm a longtime Quincy person, musician, music lover. I think it's so cool that you brought this music festival to Quincy. If you ever want to put a local flavor into the mix, here's a link to my band's, latest album. We just put out our first album on Rumbar. Anyway, congratulations. And like 4 months later, he writes me back and he's like, I'm sorry, remiss in writing you back. Thank you for your kind words. I love your band. This is great. And a month later, the promoter reached out and said, hey, Alex wants you guys on the bill for the In Between Festival. Like, I guess it pays to
That's
check in.
awesome.
Yeah. So then the rugby team, they create this like festival atmosphere at their games. I think one of their slogans is, we throw the best outdoor party in Quincy and a rugby game breaks out. So they've got like craft beer tent and food trucks, and it's a cool vibe. And then there's a rugby game. And so they have live music before and after the game.
That's
And most
wild.
covers bands, but because they are fans of ours, they invite us back. So where I was going with it is that the gig so we played before one of the games in May, and just a crazy gig, very different. Nobody's there to really see the band. You're sort of background to this party going on.
Yeah.
We're playing and it's a 75-minute set, but we're playing all our own stuff, and it's going over really well, and it's fun. And but there was a moment before we went on. This is the first time we've played the venue where it's this 5-piece lineup specifically together. And we're kind of huddling together, talking before we go on. And I glance over at the field and I'm like, guys, how unbelievable is it that we're getting ready to jump on stage and play our music together? And there's the field where we got our high school diplomas like almost 40 years ago. Like, this is a special moment. Like, and back then it would have been throwing our amps over the wall, trying to set up Renegade and getting arrested by the Quincy police, because it was not at all that kind of place back then. So this thought of like going back in the time machine and telling our teenage selves that, like, hey, you know what? We'll be in our mid 50s playing in a band together, more locked in than ever, and we're going to play a gig at the stadium. It would have been unimaginable. So that was special. But 5x5 from 4. So that's kind of an acknowledgement to the lineup and what we have coming up. So it's 5 songs by 5 Gypsy Moths from our forthcoming 4-sided album. So this is a teaser EP for a brand new album that comes out in October, 25 song.
Well, we're going to talk about that because I didn't know if that was a misprint, that there's going to be a double album with 25 songs. And I'm like, I can't wait to bring that up. But
So that's
this
the
one,
title.
yeah, this title. Yeah, oh, that makes sense. That's great, dude. I like it. So, did you come up with it, or was it a group thing?
Yeah, I did. I was trying to figure out a way to, like, I wanted the EP. So just to step back a bit, we've been writing and recording all sorts of stuff, and like it's and to speak to that connectivity that we have and like the renewed energy in the band and all of that, the creative outlets and connectivity with it are just at an all-time high. So we had no plan of like, we're going to record it or even write 25 songs, but we had 2 singles earlier this year, and I had a conversation with Lou in the spring where I was a little bit, kind of tippy toe on him. Like, I didn't know how he'd react. I'm like, it's like, so what's next for the band? I'm like, well, we've got 25 songs in development in the studio, and in Blue Sky World, we're going to record a double album. And Lou, being the amazing, supportive, creative, open-minded person he is, he doesn't miss a beat. He's like, I think that's awesome.
Is it
And
going to come out on vinyl like all your other stuff does too?
it will eventually. Like right now, with between a couple of things, vinyl backlogging, like the back ordering and like the wait to print vinyl is longer than ever. And
I believe that.
it's not inexpensive to print vinyl. and especially if you're going to do a gatefold jacket and 2 albums and all that. It's also, budgets go towards, take some budget to record 25 songs and master it and all of that.
Yeah.
So right now, vinyl is coming. So the four sides of a vinyl double LP, the four is TBD, the four in the title of 5x5 from four. But we're going to do it as like a 2 CD, gatefold.
Oh, cool. Double CD. CDs are making, I have a lot of friends at retail, like you used to. Maybe you still do. And guys have been, men, women, whoever's at the store has been telling me CDs for some reason are selling again. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's funny. There's a record store down that I frequent in Hyannis down here on the Cape called Spinnaker Records. If you're ever down
Is that
here,
the main one right in the,
yeah, exactly.
oh,
It's
I've
been
been there. That place is great, man.
great shop. And I remember when they like the vinyl, like I've only lived here for 3 years, but I've, living in Massachusetts, I've been going to the Cape off and on for a long time. And CDs took over the place for some time. And then they went away and it's all vinyl. And then now, like in the last 12 months, particularly the CD section, just modestly, but every time I'm in there, I'm like, I think there's another bin of CDs and there's another, batch there. So when we when I was first speaking to Lou about what was in development, he was so supportive of it, but it was his concept to do an EP. And, attention spans in this day and age, particularly just for an album altogether, is short. And, people are used to little bites and snippets and snacking on stuff. And, we don't want to presume that anybody's going to wait till that golden day in October and sit there and devour 25 songs like they would the White Album back in 1968. So Lou was like, let's keep the songs kind of getting out there leading up to the album, and let's do a 5-song EP. And we had the 2 singles previously that if you go to the Rumbar page, he's got them as bonus tracks on the EP, but we
Yeah.
wanted the EP to be 5 brand new songs versus tagging on the singles. He was all on board with that. But we asked him to pick the songs because we don't have the whole 25 songs mixed and mastered, but we've got a bunch done. So we sent him a bunch of tunes and he was like, hey, can I pick them? I'm like, that would be awesome. So it was a treat and like a fun anticipation to see, okay, well, he's got 10, 11 songs sitting on the table. It'll be fun to see what he picks and what he gravitates towards. So Lou chose the 5 tunes, which we were on any given day. It's the same ones we would have chosen as well. We love the ones that were now going to be album tracks or future singles or whatever. But so that's how the whole concept of the EP came together. It's a digital streaming only release. But again, back to the, attention span thing, we want to be conscientious of, or not presumptuous, I guess you'd say, that somebody's going to be waiting for 25 songs from the Gypsy Moths. So a couple singles came out earlier, 5-song EP now, maybe a single or 2 between now and October to keep the music coming out.
It's a good plan, I think.
Thank you.
You produced a record with Ed Reamer at Ed's Barn on the engineering. Tell people out there that might not know, what does it mean that you were the producer and how did you work with Ed on it?
That's a great question. So, I'm a longtime student of rock and roll, and I will gravitate towards the producer's name on the back of a record as much as I would who played drums or guitar or what have you.
Same.
But that said, I guess I only know what I know. So for producer in our band, I'm one of the songwriters, so I write the music and Steev writes the lyrics. So I guess my role as the producer in the band is to kind of drive the vision forward for the songs in terms of like, here's where they can go in the studio. I think we're a very different band live than we are at the studio. Like we really go for all the opportunities in the studio to layer and to, with Ed's partnership, really kind of mix things in a way that highlights all the different elements to it. And, there's only one guitar player and there's only one keyboard player, but we'll throw an organ part and a piano part, or I'll have like 3 or 4 or 5 guitar parts on a song, knowing that, okay, we'll never be able to pull this off exactly like this live. But as a rock and roll fan, one of my favorite things about a lot of bands was when you'd have the studio version and the live version that had a uniqueness to it, like a really raw, stripped down kind of more rock and live stuff. And then you'd hear a band that had maybe a little bit more textured, layered, studio type production. And so in producing the music, I kind of go for that. Like, let's make the most of the studio. Let's not worry about how that manifests live. I'm a fan of a lot of music historically that like goes for that kind of layered. Not to say that we're necessarily achieving this, but going for that kind of layered sound and making the most of it with vocals and different guitar parts and all that. So I guess my role is to take where we see the songs as songwriters going in the studio, kind of guide everybody along to not writing everybody else's parts, but be there to sort of keep things moving. Working with Ed in terms of his great, he's just such an amazing engineer and has such a musical ear. So working with him in terms of like how we're recording things and how it sounds, and then getting to the mixing part where Ed is such a amazing mixer as well. But I sit with him when we mix, and so I think it's kind of hands on the wheel and ears wide open on where I think it's going.
Now, do you lay down when you go in, do you just play live and then just try and get the drums and the bass and then overdub everything? Is that how you guys record, or do you have a different recording technique?
We've evolved that technique over the years. When we first started out, that was absolutely it. We track live, and so you'd have the foundation of bass, drums, guitar, perhaps keyboard, and then we'd see like, okay, is anything we need to be substituted or swapped out, and then layer on top of it with a guide vocal that most of the time we'd go back in and do a proper vocal for it. But with this record, so that's moved further and further away from that as we've done each record, where the role of the backing band, like the live band tracking it and then layering on top, has squeezed down a bit to the point that with this record, we only tracked a rhythm acoustic guitar and the drums first.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
and Steev doing a guide vocal to just kind of keep us on track with the arrangement, but just Matt and I playing it, and that rhythm acoustic guitar track, I'd say 95% of them didn't make the record. It was there just to kind of keep the song going, but laying down the drums first and then building each layer on top of it.
That's interesting. I
Yeah,
like that.
the other thing that was really different about this record is that all 25 of these songs we recorded as demos beforehand. So I've got a little, I'm actually sitting in it right now. I've got a little home studio set up that's Logic Pro software on my laptop, microphone, a
Do you
Focusrite in
demo everything first before you go to see
every
Ed?
every song. Yeah. So my process is that I start by writing the tune, the song musically, instrumentally, and I fully arrange it so it ends up being basically an instrumental version of the song. So
Wow.
it's beginning to end. I was like, this is the song. I'll have multiple guitar parts on there. Let me preface this by saying that if you put a keyboard in front of me, I'm going to sound like a 5-year-old before they even had their first lesson. But the beauty of software is that you can, let's say there's a piano part that goes like, you record like da 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 da, and then da 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 da, and then da da da. What just facetiously making it up. If you can pull off with 2 fingers, and I'm being kidding there, but like you pull off these little bits and then you mix it together, it almost kind of sounds like a little keyboard part. So there's some keyboards that are done at home as well, and that's a new thing for this record, and I'll put like tambourines and shakers on it, but I'll basically have like a home recorded instrumental version of the song. Then it goes over to Steve, and it's like Christmas for me, waiting to come see what he comes back with lyrics. So he'll send me the written lyrics, and he writes everything out by hand. He'll use different ink for like, here's the verse, here's the chorus, here's the bridge. Like he's such an artist. He's wired very artistically and very visual with how he does it. And he's an amazing storyteller. Each of his songs, and I'm biased because he's been one of my closest friends since 1982 when we've been musical collaborators off and on since then, since we first got started. But I feel like he
And
is
that was in high school,
yes, before high school. Like we met in 1982. We were still in junior high, and we were
junior high.
figuring out how to play our music. But we had a band form before we knew how to play, like listening to Beatles and Creedence records, and then some, early, Clash.
Credence.
Yeah, that Creedence is one of our biggest influences. But like, we kind of had this vision of like, we're gonna have a band, and this is what it's gonna sound like, and all this other stuff. And then it was like, all right, now we need to learn how to play some instruments. So, but he's a storyteller. I think you can look at any of his lyrics, and it's a little short story that's got a real kind of visual element to it. So I send it over to him, and he'll come back with like a scratch vocal on top of it to give an idea for a melody, send me those written lyrics. We kind of fine tune that together, and then we bring it to the band and sort of develop out. And Matt is very recording minded as well. So he's got a little setup at home. So he'll send me back drums layered on the demo, get it over to Phil. He'll lay on some bass on the demo. So we've got this instrumental version of the song, or a demo version of the song, that's fully realized, that you could probably put out in the 80s on a cassette, and that would be like our little demo tape. But we've got a very definite architecture of what the sound's going to sound like in the studio. So that helps as a producer as well to know, like, okay, let's have a really great sounding version and then some of what that demo sounded like without being too tied to it. But another unique thing about this album too is that a ton of the elements from those demos at home are on the actual record. So like I said, we started with the drums.
Ed must love working with you.
Yeah, so like we start with the drums, and then I send him over, like I would honestly say like 80% of the guitars on the new album were recorded here in my room here, that we flew over to Ed's and he imported into the session.
Wow, that's
Some,
awesome.
yeah, it's the reason I got a little keyboard credit on the recordings of some of the keys that I put in, more like background, like little layered parts get flown in, but then Dave Buckley, our amazing piano player, he puts all the real magic and the stuff that you'd notice that sounds really great for keyboards on our stuff, that's Dave. But yeah, so this album is a mix of a ton of stuff done at Ed's, like all the vocals, all the drums, all the bass, some guitar, some of the percussion, almost all the keyboards, but definitely a balance like we've never done that before, where we flew in stuff from my home recordings. So it gives a little bit of a different sound, and a different challenge in mixing it too. Like Ed uses Pro Tools, I use Logic, and like sometimes I'll send him a file over that like it's a half step off, and we'll pull our hair out like, why is it just behind the beat of it? Like the software didn't match it. We'll have to figure out a way to move it over or re-record it or redo it at home. But it's been a really unique, different process, and I think that's part of why I'm personally so excited about the new album and feel this renewed sense of connection to our band and all that, is that we've found through recording this album and all these new songs and our approach to it and the lineup and all that, that like it's very much the Gypsy Moths, but it's almost like a brand new band.
It's a great process you got going. The opener, and you know I do, has this beautiful, ready, Mercy beat charm to it. What inspired that track, and why did you choose to put that one on the record? I think it was a great choice, but I mean, what made you guys decide, or was that Lou?
Lou recommended that one, but I think that if we had chosen the 5 songs, it's almost certain that would have made it either way. So that was definitely written in mind of like trying to, like, not trying to write a song, but like very much influenced by like 63 UK pop, with
Jerry and the Pacemakers, and yeah.
pacemakers, Billy J, Kramer, certainly early Beatles. I mean, Beatles are for Steve and I for sure #1 influence
Yeah,
by.
I was going to say if you could just explain to the listeners when we say Mercy beat.
Yeah, so Mersey beat is the term that got applied to British invasion. Was obviously all the bands that conquered America in the 60s, but not
Yes.
all of them were from the same area. And so some were from Liverpool, some from Manchester, like the Hollies, some from London, like the Who and the Rolling Stones. But the Mersey is the river that is next to Liverpool. And Liverpool, I think, became such a special thing. And anything you read with the Beatles, they'll speak to this. It's a port. It's an international shipping port. So the kids in Liverpool, while it's this kind of podunk town up in the north, or city up in the north of Liverpool, they oftentimes got American records and underground records and different records before kids in London would, because all of the sailors and shipping vessels, and so there would be all this international traffic coming and going. So there was a really unique influence on what was in the record stores out there. So that's why the Liverpool sound has such a different sound to it. Obviously, the enormous talent of particularly the Beatles, but they had such connection to records that perhaps folks in different parts of England didn't have. So I think it was,
Must have been a writer that came
yeah,
up with the
yeah,
term,
it
right?
is. Yeah, what's his name? Bill. I'll remember it afterwards. But there's a writer from
I
Liverpool,
should know that.
yeah, who started a magazine called Mersey Beat about
Oh,
uh,
it was a magazine.
yeah, like a local almost like their version of, the Noise or Boston Rock or whatever. It was like the local. I want to say Bill Haley, but we know it's not Haley. But
Bill
Phil
Harry,
Bill Harry. I knew it was an H. Yeah, so Bill.
Harry, according to
Yeah, that's it. That's it for
Wikipedia.
sure. So
He's
Bill Harry had the Mersey Beat magazine, and he
61. Wow.
yeah, so he was. I mean, he would. That's how the Beatles really got discovered. Is that he had them on the cover of their first magazine, and Brian Epstein,
There's
who
the cover. I don't know if you can see it
right
on my
there,
phone.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Brian Epstein, who became their manager, his family owned shops called Nems, which were mostly furniture shops throughout the north of England, but they had a record department, and you could go in there apparently and grab records off the shelves and put it on a turntable and put on headphones and listen to it. And so the Beatles talk about how like all those hundreds of covers they did early on, they couldn't afford the records, so they'd go in there, listen to all these new singles, run back to their houses, like try to remember the chords and the lyrics to it, and that's how that happened. But yeah, so Mersey Beat is that specific Liverpool sound of the early to mid 60s, and it's a massive influence on us as music fans. And so, and I do, we kind of took a little swing to start with the music, and it wasn't called that, before we had the lyric in there, but we, I actually come up with like these little goofy names for the demo so everybody can keep track of what is what. So that was a demo called Easy Chair, just these arbitrary names. Then Steve's lyric drives what the song title is. So that was, and I think that he recognized where it was going with the music, and he leaned into that aesthetic with, the beautiful kind of traditional little like girl meets boy love song in there, and we went with that with the melodies and
You
what
you
have.
guys you guys are on your own track right now. And you come from a marketing background because you marketed independent bands when you were at Tang Records, just like I did when I worked for my labels. I mean, Lou has a great vision for everything, but how do you look at, because you guys are different than most of the rumbar bands, but you fall into the rock category. So when you think about marketing this band, what do you think? How do you want people to know your band, and how do you want them to listen to your band? I mean, is it Mercy Beat? Because not everyone's going to understand Mercy Beat unless they listen to this podcast, because we just explain it to them. But I mean, what's your vision for that?
That's a great question. And not everything sounds like Mercy Beat, and that's why another reason we're super excited about this album that's coming. That like, there's a lot of different little paints in the palette on this new record. Like, there's a couple to like, we've got a song that's almost kind of loungy jazz. We've got a tune that's almost like a Harry Nilsson songwriter thing. We've got some stuff that's a little bit more garage poppy. Um, can you hear that horn outside? Sorry.
It's the car alarm going off as usual. It's okay.
Yeah, but we've got all sorts of.
Did you ever live in LA, by the way?
No, I did not.
Okay,
I
when
Massachusetts my whole life.
when you lived in LA and there was an earthquake, every car alarm goes off, and it's like,
This,
so I'm very used to hearing car alarms because I've
this
been through a lot of earthquakes.
it actually reminds me of being back in the city. So I've been living in my wife and I have been living in Sandwich down here in the Cape for just under 3 years.
Don't rub it in.
But I had only lived in Quincy or Boston my whole life. Like, born in Quincy, moved to Boston. Oh, born in Boston, moved to Quincy, back to Boston. So coming down here, like, wait a minute, there's trees and no sidewalks and no street lights and it's quiet and all that. So this is nostalgic for me to hear a honking
Oh,
car
you
alarm.
know it's going to go through the rest of the
Right,
podcast.
there it is.
Oh,
Uh,
oh
I
no, it
know.
didn't.
Well,
It's
there you go.
over.
Mention it and then it goes away. But in terms of like how to market it, I guess.
And I didn't mean to lump you into one
No,
category, by
not
the
at
way,
all.
because I know you have
I didn't.
songs that are
Yeah.
different
And if you did,
tempos and
it would be an honor. Like, if somebody said, "Oh yeah, they only heard one song and that band's got a bit
well,
of Mercy
well,
Beat," then I would be
talking
thrilled.
yeah, talking about the fact that Lou and Michael and I were having this conversation. there's no other bands around that you say have a Mercy Beat sound that I could think of in the Boston area even. So you guys are kind of on your own island a little bit with even if it's only one song, you know? I mean, or
Yeah, and there's definitely, I mean, that Mersey influence is on a bunch of stuff. I
yeah,
would, and just as a counterpoint to what you just said, I would make a case that if we, let's say we like just take a baby step towards Mersey Beat, there are Muck and the Myers songs that are master classes in Mersey
yeah,
Beat.
okay, okay. Sorry, Muck,
No, no, but
our good friends.
there,
That was the one thing missing yesterday, by the way. Muck
oh,
and
yeah.
the Myers.
All right, well,
They're in LA.
yeah, they were there in spirit, in the form of the lyric from the Dogmatics song.
Drop the needle. Yeah, I love the whole crowd singing along to that was
Everybody,
good.
right? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And another, like, what a Boston moment. Like, you've got 300 people who are singing, like, adding the Liars, adding Muck and the Myers into the lyric there. But in terms of how we like to market the band, or how we, the image, or how we want people to, like, the leave behind, what we want people to know us as, um, it's fun playing live, but I don't, I think that we'd like to be known for our recordings and our songs, and like
How did
our
I know you were going to say that?
yeah, our goal with this, we send out a single to streaming radio, and it's really cool, and we don't take it for granted for a second that, like, you might pop up on a Radio Indie Alliance chart in London and or in Spain or something like that. And the thought of somebody in Spain knowing our song because it's on a streaming radio station around them that they know and love, they may know our song better than somebody in Boston. I just think that's the coolest thing ever. And so much of a 2025 thing like that wouldn't have even existed 10 years ago. But that said, and how much, we're extremely grateful for that kind of airplay, local music airplay on stuff like MFO and Bumblebee Brunch, and anything locally is huge to us as well. But our our if we could write a wish list of, like, what would you like for this record, the EP, the singles, the album, would be for people to read about it and to have somebody review it and just talk about the songs. We've put more heart and soul and love and care into the recordings of these songs than we ever have writing them, but then also the process of that end result of, once it's mastered, of, like, this is really what we were seeing when we first came up with this idea. So it's not exactly answering your question on, like, how would you market it, but I guess I would love people to take what they take away from hearing the song as a record. And I think that comes from us all being, like, record nerds and record enthusiasts, and we're all massive vinyl people, and
That
we're all
Yeah, that's what brought me in, hearing the band. I heard the band before I saw the band, and I was like, this is cool, the pop. I like the pop. I like this Mercy thing we're talking about. I like the instrumentation, the whole thing.
thank you.
So I'm confident that you guys are gonna do well. And Lou knows what the marketing deal is, and he's a good guy to have behind you. Before you go, I gotta ask you a question about if you're listening, you'll have to go on YouTube to see what I'm talking about. But there's a lot of records next to Chris. And I always have to ask questions about the records. Are your records alphabetical or by genre?
Yeah, they're alphabetical. I've tried. I've re-cataloged the records so many times over the years, and I've gone through little phases where it's, here's the blues records, here's rock records, soul records, but, like, there's just so many threads that weave between all of this stuff, and, like, and also it's like my particular view on music. Like, I hear so much blend between genres sometimes that I gave up on trying to do that. So it's A to Z, but then it gets tricky of, like, where do the Paul McCartney and Wings records go? Do they go under B at the end of the Beatles section, or do they go here? Or, like, where does the Iggy Pop, where does Iggy Pop Soldier go? Does it go in the Stooges section? Do the Stooges go in the Iggy Pop section? There's so much to it, but generally, so it's got my own little madness to it.
Hmm.
It's A to Z, but usually I'll also find the hub within, like, if something's got a bunch of, like, there's two great examples there, Beatles and solo, or, like, the Stooges and Iggy. There's a billion versions of that. I usually house them together, and then I probably spend a little bit too much time. Should it go under P for pop or S for Stooges? But I
Do,
figure it
do,
out.
do you have like one or two records in your collection that are like the cream of the crop, far as you're concerned.
I do actually. Yeah, there's it's a theme I always go back to, but I've got a couple of original UK first pressing Beatle titles that one of them I got on Discogs a few years ago, but two of them, so it's three particular records. Their
Did you
second
have to
album,
pay a lot for the one you got on Discogs?
you know what, actually, I really lucked out on that one. The ones I paid a little bit more for, but not anything obscene, were my wife and I did a trip to London just about 10 years ago now, a little over 10 years ago. And I found a original first UK pressing, like you, I go really deep. So when I was looking, I not only just for their first pressing, I'm taking my glasses down and looking at the etching on the inner groove, because I was looking specifically for like the first. So
That's a Tom Wilson thing.
you've got your first pressing, but then like, all right, the first UK pressing of With the Beatles, the very first 25,000 were done at the plant in London versus the sister plants out there. And whether or not this is true, I don't know, but like folklore will tell you that that first stamper that's made for that first pressing, even though everything else is still first pressing, that's kind of the closest you'll get to hearing the master from the studio.
Oh,
So in London, I found the first UK mono pressing, like the first pressing, like we're talking about here, of the second Beatles album With the Beatles, and then the UK mono of Rubber Soul. And then the one on Discogs was the very first kind of pressing of Beatles Abbey Road. And they've got glossy covers. Like sometimes the very first run of UK records in the 60s, they're not that, it's almost like that semi-gloss type of finish, like it's shiny.
yeah.
It's like a flat print to it. So I guess if I had to, like, if they came in and said, you got to get rid of all the records, you keep in three, yeah, I'd want some
Beatles.
variety there, but I'd probably keep those three because and it could be psychological of myself convinced that because they're that pressing, that's the best. But those are my three.
That's awesome. Chris, thank you so much, man. It's always fun. You know, the last time we spoke was episode 300 when you and Tom were on. That was over 100 episodes ago. So I suggest every 100 episode. We'll have to talk when the double album comes out because
Thank
that'll
you.
be really cool and I'm really excited. But you're always welcome.
I'd love to do that, Stephen. And let me just take a minute before we go to say thank you for doing what you do. I love the podcast. It's either like a portal for me to discover some new music, or you checking in with an old friend, whether it's a band I love, or like the Debbie Southwood Smith episode, Julie Chrysler's episode.
All
I,
the ERS people.
yeah, I listened to those episodes actually a few times in a row. They were amazing.
Thanks, man.
The Salem 66 episode was extraordinary.
I was
That's a
talking to Minahan about that last night. I was really happy that Judy came on because, you know, Judy and David are married for people that are listening. And
Absolutely. It blew my mind. And that's a great example of how awesome the podcast is that I've been a, Boston rock and roller for a long time. I love Salem 66 when they were happening. I played Salem 66 a bunch on my ERS show from 87 to 91, or the different shows I had at ERS. And I saw them plenty of times back then live, but I didn't really know their story. And I knew the members, but I was out here like watering the lawn or doing some yard work the other day and catching up on a few episodes. And it was it was one of the best ones.
thank
I
you,
say
man.
this many times, but it was just an extraordinary thing.
Thank you.
And to have the opportunity in talking about, like, how do you promote and market the band? I have such admiration and respect and fandom for what you do in this outlet for us as fans. So to be able to, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, to be able to come on here and have the opportunity to talk about my music, other than being a fan of the show, I'm so grateful for that. So thank you.
You trying to get me to be speechless now? Thank you so much. I got to say one thing about that Salem 66 interview. The thing that I threw at them that they loved and a lot of people keep asking about is the band leader thing on
Right.
the record. I mean, when I managed bands, I wish I could have wrote that next to, band leader, Steve Riccardo.
Totally. And it's funny, I'd forgotten about that. And so I came in the house after listening to it and I grabbed a few of the records. I'm like, oh, there it is, her sister. I guess maybe when I saw it back then, I never thought anything about it. I'm like, I probably just went, okay,
It's not common. It's not a common thing.
But I think, and you know this better than anybody of having a history of managing bands. oftentimes that manager is absolutely the band leader.
True. Thank you for saying that too.
Yeah.
All right, Chris. We'll talk soon, man.
Good to see you, Steve. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.